Welcome back, fantastic friends and fans, to the 8th episode of the Fancast at 4 podcast. My name is Dan Bettenhausen, and I'm your host as we venture into the what-ifs of Marvel's first family, who will soon be appearing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As we wait to hear who will be behind the camera for the Fantastic Four's introduction into the MCU, we still can explore what it would be like if a different director was behind the camera. If you are new to the podcast and want to hear a brief history of the Fantastic Four, you can check out our first episode, where guest Pat Bolfamonte provides a breakdown of each of the characters. With that said, let's dive right in and meet this episode's guest and see what they have in store for us. Now, back by popular demand, I'm excited to have my friend Jack Mayer on this episode. Jack, welcome back to the podcast. I have to ask, how has your life changed since your first appearance on the show?
In so many ways. I have had calls from every major studio asking me to come in and pitch them movies. It's crazy. I have never, ever been this busy, but I still made time for this episode.
Well, great. I mean, have you heard from M. Night himself?
We've been in contact.
Oh, good. So listeners, if you haven't listened to Jack's first episode, he and I did a deep dive into what it would be like if M. Night Shyamalan himself directed a Fantastic Four movie. And if I do say so myself, things got wild. But I'm really hoping we can up our game this time.
I think we will.
So without further ado, I do want to get into this week's director and who we'll be discussing. Here are some career highlights of this person. First, he has 6 feature films in his filmography, 1 nomination and win for Best Director at the Academy Awards, 2 nominations and 1 win for Best Picture at the Academy Award. He directed 7 Academy Award nominated performances, with 3 of them being winners, and he directed, wrote, and produced one of the greatest films of all time. This British-Australian director got his start making short films as a teenager. At Oxford University, he directed plays and television commercials. After graduating, he then began to direct many episodes on British television, and he has since made his name directing historical dramas and musicals. The director we are discussing this week is Tom Hooper.
Woo!
Jack, when you think of the name Tom Hooper, what comes to mind?
Buttholes.
We're starting early.
It is the first thing that pops into my mind is just buttholes.
Can you elaborate for maybe our more naive listeners?
Back in 2019, the world was exposed to something unbeknownst to anyone. A musical film by the name of Cats.
Pinnacle of cinema.
Absolute masterpiece. However, this can only be described as good as a masterpiece.
As good as a masterpiece.
Because there are no buttholes. And at a certain point in the edit, the cats had buttholes, but they were taken out of the film. And we, as the fans of Cats, demand that Universal Pictures release the butthole
miscarriage
cut.
of justice.
Absolute abomination of cinema.
Okay, so besides buttholes, what about Tom Hooper as a director? How would you describe him? What about him, for lack of a better word, appeals to you?
Nothing. That's why I love him.
Well, if you're ready to continue with us, listeners, let's dive into our segment now called 4 Fantastic Films. We're going to discuss 4 films from this director's filmography. Granted, Tom Hooper only has 6, so we don't have a large slate to choose from. But with that said, Jack, what is one film that you want to first discuss in Tom Hooper's filmography?
I feel like we should probably discuss The King's Speech first.
Yeah, I mean, it is the one that won him Best Director. He got a Best Actor award, or he directed a Best Actor in Colin Firth for lead performance.
And even though it maybe hasn't held up as well, it did win Best Picture.
Right. I think it's one of those films that actually probably got hurt by its win, because there was maybe some better movies that were a little more deserving.
The one that pops into my mind immediately is The Social Network.
Right.
Was the same year.
And yeah, it's not to say that The King's Speech is a bad movie. On the contrary, it's actually a very good movie. It's just one that has not held up, and its win probably is giving it more unfair criticism than it actually deserves, just because, like you said, it is paired up against a movie that year that has a better chance of standing the test of time. So then the next film I think we should talk about is The Danish Girl. I think another one that won an award, Best Supporting Actress award for Alicia Vikander, though, in my humble opinion, she should have won for Ex Machina that year. Despite, I mean, she wasn't nominated for that, but that was, to me, the superior role. Regardless, another nominated film in his filmography, but one that I think has probably been getting a little more criticism as of late. I mean, since its nomination, that really isn't talked about too much anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's because the movie sort of slipped out of any kind of conversation after it was nominated. Even when it was nominated, no one was really talking about The Danish Girl. People were sort of talking about Eddie Redmayne. They were definitely talking about Vikander because of her Oscar win, but I don't think I've met a single person who's seen that movie.
Yeah, I haven't. I try and see most Oscar films, and I didn't see it. And I think it's one of those films that, especially maybe a year or two later, really got some heat because of a non-trans actor playing a trans role. But I think at this point, people were just kind of tired of his shtick. He was getting he was taking on these roles where he had to do these big transformations. I think people were just getting tired of it.
I was kind of getting tired of it.
So again, Danish Girl, fine film from everything I've heard, but just, again, not one that really is maintained in the current zeitgeist.
It's also sandwiched in between his two big musicals.
Right. Let's talk about that first one. This one's tough, listeners. His first musical was released in 2012, and that was the film production of Les Mis. Jack is just holding his head there. I think he and I feel pretty similar about this film.
I don't even know if we feel similar. You say your piece, and then I'll say mine.
It stunk. I mean, I have, for clarification, Les Mis is one of, if not my all-time favorite stage musical. I think it is so broad and sweeping, and some really powerful musical numbers. This film just undercuts a lot of it. Tom Hooper wanted to do this thing where he recorded all the audio live. So what you see on screen is the actual performances. In theory, that's great. Not with this musical that is so big, because everything then has to be zoomed in, and you lose the scope of the performances, of the stage, of the musical itself. And while I do think there were some good performances, especially Hugh Jackman and Anne Hathaway, among some others, there are also some real stinkers. I'm not looking at you there, Russell Crowe. So this movie was a big disappointment. And while I'm still on the train that Anne Hathaway deserved her Oscar for Best Supporting Actress, that was really one of a few positive notes of this film. The rest were just disappointments.
Yeah. I think they should use this movie to torture people. I think it would be a very effective means of torture. This is one of the most painful movies I have ever had to sit through. I don't know how you somehow managed to make Aaron Tveit unlikable in a movie. Tom Hooper found a way. Tom Hooper found a way to muck everything up.
I mean, and in a movie where like muck is just everywhere, it's bad muck. It's not good muck.
So bad. I don't even really think that many of the performances are that good. The only person who I think really stands out in this movie is Samantha Barks, and that's because she is a pro.
And like I said, I think you and I have some disagreement there, just as far as the musical numbers. I guess what are your thoughts on Les Mis in general, outside of it being on film? Are you a fan?
My aunt has a theory that you're either a Phantom of the Opera person or you're a Les Mis person. I am much more of a Les Mis person. I really, really enjoy the musical.
Good. You're allowed to stay on the podcast.
That movie just sucked my soul out of me, made me so sad for the wrong reasons.
Right. I would say, in a musical that is inherent, it's called The Miserables. It certainly lived up to its name, and not in any sort of intended way. We could probably keep going on about Les Mis and how it disappointed us, but why talk about something so bad when we could talk about something so good? For all of you listeners, you're probably going to hear this next movie and think, "Oh, these two are joking around. They have to be kidding." No, I swear to you,
we're dead serious.
This next conversation is dead serious. In 2019, a film was released that changed me. I think it probably changed Jack. Maybe changed society. It was the adaptation of Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats. This film evoked something inside of me that is difficult to describe, but It has now breached one of my all-time favorite films. It brings an immense amount of joy into my life, listeners, and maybe we can convince you why it should do the same for you. Jack, when you think about the movie Cats, what comes to mind?
Joy, magic, cats.
Cats.
I saw this movie in a preview showing a couple days before it was released when the CGI was maybe half done.
Ooh, perfect.
I adored this film the second I saw it, and I have not stopped loving it since. It is incredible on every level because it misunderstands everything about its source material. Its source material is not good as well. I'm just going to get that on the table. Cats is not a great musical, but there is something there. There is substance in Cats if you dig a little bit deeper. There's nothing in this movie. So why not just enjoy what a train wreck it is?
It is essentially a movie about cats presenting their case to get a new life. And they're going to this thing called the Jellicle Ball. Do we know what the hell a Jellicle is? No. Should we care what a Jellicle is? No. Just enjoy it. And essentially, it's just cats introducing themselves via song the whole movie. I am not a cat person, listeners, at all.
Nor am I allergic to them.
This movie made me a believer. I had a religious experience.
Now and forever.
Yeah, till the end of time. Do you have a favorite cat, Jack?
I do. His name is Skimbleshanks, the railway cat, and he's the cat of the railway train.
That's up there. That is up there. But for me, it is the magical Mr. Mistopheles.
He's my second. He's so pure. I love him.
And you can't forget about Old Deuteronomy, played by the immaculate Dame Judi Dench.
I will never forget when she first turns to camera and starts addressing the audience directly.
Oh, breaking the fourth
wall.
That
moment is seared into my mind forever.
It surpasses any fourth wall breaking that Ryan Reynolds does in Deadpool.
Absolutely.
The one person I do want to make sure we give credit to is Ian McKellen. He is the one person who knows what movie he's in.
Jennifer Hudson as well does a very good rendition of Memory, I will say.
Oh, I feel she is kind of like Grisabella, the character she plays, is kind of separated from everyone, though. She is an outlier in both a performance and as a character. So you are right. Her performance of Memory is great. It's Jennifer Hudson. Like she can sing the dictionary for all we care. But in the whole plethora of cats grouped together at this Jellicle Ball, Ian McKellen's like, I know what the hell I'm doing.
Gus is the cat at the theater door.
I could keep going.
We could probably do a podcast. We could probably do a Cats podcast.
Oh, we probably could. Discussing each cat in a different episode.
Discussing each second of this movie, every frame. We could probably do this podcast.
Listeners, we've gone off the rails. Unlike Skimbleshanks, the railway cat.
Cat of the railway train.
But the last thing I'm going to say about Cats is it reminds me of a parent with a disappointing child. Despite how disappointing it is, you love it all the same. And that is my relationship with Cats. Okay, with that said, you may have thought we got through the meat of our conversation, but in fact, we still have a lot left to discuss, listeners.
So much.
And now we're getting into what you're really here for, the castings, our fantastic castings of a Tom Hooper-directed Fantastic Four film. So with that said, Jack is going to go through his casting of all the 5 main characters in this film, and I'm going to follow up with mine. Once we're through with those, maybe have a little discussion, and then we'll get into our pitches. So, Jack, who is the cast of your Tom Hooper Fantastic Four film?
So it's important to note, I'm just going to say my people, just go right through it, because they are the reasons that I picked them play into the plot eventually.
Okay, good to know.
So for Reed Richards, I have Ben Whishaw, who was in The Danish Girl, but who proved that he could sing in Mary Poppins Returns, if that gives you any indication about where this is going.
When I hear Ben Whishaw, I think of, and Reed Richards, I think of Q from the James Bond films. So that's what comes to mind. So I'm really intrigued by that. What about your Sue Storm?
My Sue Storm, It was the first one that actually popped into my head. There is no one else I could have picked, but possibly the greatest artist of all time, my favorite artist of all time, and singer of McCavity and Cats, Miss Taylor Swift.
Being that she was in one of the greatest films of all time, it's hard to knock her acting chops. I'm imagining I see where you're going, at least as far as if there's going to be any music in your film, but I don't want to spoil anything. Tell us who your Johnny Storm is.
That would be Broadway starlet and Enjolras from Les Miserables, Aaron Tveit. His voice could run me over with a truck, and I'd say thank you.
I mean, and he seems like he has the temperament for a Johnny Storm. What about your Ben Grimm?
Jason Derulo. Again, this will play it.
Yeah, no, I have zero doubt. It is the listeners you're going to have to convince. I am on board already. So,
listeners, you'll get it. You'll get it when you hear it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Last but not least, who's your Dr. Doom?
James Corden.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I'm confused, but in a good way. Not unlike watching the movie 2019's Cats. Well, like I said, since you are waiting to discuss in further detail in your pitch, I will go through mine then. For my Reed Richards, I'm doing a little gender bending here, and I'm going to take an actress who is mentioned previously, not in Jack's castings, but earlier in the episode. She did win a Best Supporting Actress nomination for 2012's Les Mis. I'm going with Anne Hathaway. She is my straight crush, has been for a long time. She can do so many things, and I think it doesn't stand against reason that she could play this brainiac, this superhero. She was Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises, so I could see her going from that anti-hero more into a hero role, but still being that logical, kind of single-minded, focused character, and doing it well. But again, maybe my bias towards her is showing, but I stan Anne, and I think she would be my lead in this film. For my Sue Storm, I'm sticking with 2012's Les Mis. I'm trying to give some redemption here to these actors in this film for them being in this new one. I'm going with the actress who played the older version of Cosette, Amanda Seyfried. So I do see there being a romantic relationship between Anne Hathaway's Reed Richards and Amanda Seyfried's Sue Storm. I think she has the chops both as an actress and as a singer. I think she possessed the ability to evoke the maternal, the loving, but also the kind of badass, serious fighter that Sue Storm is. That's why I chose Amanda Seyfried.
So you mentioned singer, so now I'm curious to see what your pitch is.
It's no hiding it. Listen, I'm going the musical route. I'm only teasing what this will be. For my Johnny Storm, this is probably the biggest divergence I've done for this character in any of my castings. I'm going with an actor who was in both 2012's Les Mis and 2015's The Danish Girl. He is an Academy Award winner. I'm going with Eddie Redmayne.
Oh, okay.
Mostly because I didn't want to copy your choice. But he is still a great actor. I don't necessarily think on paper he has what I would normally look for in a Johnny Storm. But I think he has singing chops. He is a great actor. So I'm trusting that he can break away from that kind of meekness that we've seen in him throughout a lot of it, and just going to kind of challenge him to switch gears and be Johnny Storm.
You don't think you showed that in Jupiter Ascending? I
have not seen Jupiter Ascending for very good reason.
Oh, you have to. It's really bad. And he's really bad in it.
That's what I've heard. So I just have to
do it for the bit, Dan.
Yeah, the morbid appeal behind it. But
did you say morb?
We're not morb. It's not Morbin time yet. I trust in the ability of an actor of his quality. Any thoughts on Eddie as Johnny?
I mean, I don't love Eddie as an actor, but I think it's a good choice.
Really, I do not plan on featuring him a lot, but someone needed to fill the role. For my Ben Grimm for The Thing, I'm actually very excited about this one. He too, you guessed it, was in 2012's Les Mis. I'm going with Borat himself, Sacha Baron Cohen.
That is a great choice. That is a fantastic choice.
Cue the sound. Cue the sound effect. One thing I do try and do, as I say every week, is cast someone with a Jewish background. Sacha Baron Cohen does come from a Jewish family, and that is Certainly part of the reason why I cast him in there. I think he has the humor, the toughness, the grit, the gravel to be a Ben Grimm and play it well. And again, with the use of CGI and whatever means they have to transform him into the Thing, I think the look is kind of his personal look is irrelevant as long as he has the voice to be able to pull it off. Finally, for my Doctor Doom, for my Victor Von Doom, or rather Victoria Von Doom, I am going with the best supporting actress from The Danish Girl, Alicia Vikander. I love her so much, mostly from the movie Ex Machina. If you've never seen the movie Ex Machina, you all should see this movie. But I think she has what it takes to be the antithesis, the Doctor Doom, to an Anne Hathaway, Reed Richards. I think she has the ability to just play a villain, a badass featured villain in the MCU, regardless if it's Doctor Doom or anyone. I want to see her in the MCU in some way, shape, or form.
She is also fantastic in The Green Knight.
Yes, small role compared to some, especially Dev Patel, but yeah, she is certainly a standout in the minutes she's given in the movie. One movie I also recommend that she was in is The Man from U.N.C.L.E. We're not going to talk about one certain actor from that movie, but between her and Henry Cavill, that is really a fun movie that I think just gets overlooked a lot, that you all should check out.
Yeah, the two of them in the co-star really eat it up.
Well, there you have it, our two casts. If you are listening on YouTube, leave a comment on which one you think is more interesting or who you would cast. But with that said, now it's time to take these casts, the people we've pitched, and put them into a pitch for an actual Tom Hooper Fantastic Four film. So, Jack, I will let you start, but before you get into your pitch, I have two questions for you. Is your film an origin film?
Yes, I would say so.
Second, is it part of the MCU?
I think Kevin Feige would have an aneurysm if this was set in the MCU.
So yes?
No.
Then don't let me hold you up. If it's anything like your M. Night Shyamalan pitch, everyone buckle your seatbelts and fire away, Jack.
We open on a deep purple sky with an orange moon shining dimly. That's an important thing to note because, like a Tom Hooper film, all the lighting is super ugly. Text on the screen appears, Latveria, present day. Suddenly, a giant helicopter cuts across the moon. It flies for a moment over the country, coming to land eventually on a brightly lit helicopter pad. Two people wearing black combat uniforms that have VDP stitched into them open the helicopter doors as roughly 20 people are let out, each one looking more confused than the next. Among these 20 are Reed Richards, Sue Storm, her brother Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm. The combat people march the group away from the helicopter and into a giant building that has the letters VDP etched into it. The 20 are led into an elevator which shoots them up about 100 stories as the plains of Latveria stretch further and further. The elevator dings and the 20 step into what appears to be a giant auditorium, roughly the size of a small Broadway theater. A voice booms over the speakers, "Please take your seats. The show is about to begin." Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben are all seated next to one another. Sue leans over to Reed and whispers, "What do you think is going to happen to us?" Reed replies, "I'm not sure, but I hope it's not too painful." The lights in the theater dim, while the stage lights become luminous. The same loudspeaker voice booms, "Ladies and gentlemen, now the moment you've all been waiting for. Please welcome your host, Victor Von Doom." And so begins the opening number. Here in this hall, here in this room, you'll find a magic that requires no broom. No need to brawl, no need for gloom. Now you're in the presence of Victor Von Doom. The 20 break into applause, impressed and amazed by what they've just seen. Von Doom catches his breath for a moment, then is handed a microphone. "Welcome everyone to Von Doom Productions," he exclaims to more applause. "My name is Victor Von Doom, CEO and founder. Now, for those of you who don't know, we here at VDP have really been trying to branch out our media department, getting a crowd of people storming in that would normally never want to leave their couch. And we've discovered something. When it comes to getting audience attention, they crave more. More what, you're probably asking? More story? More character? No. What audiences want is spectacle. Our research team has spent the last 6 months finding who they believe are the best of the best. Actors, singers, dancers, maybe all three, but only some of you will be chosen for this honor. The rest of you, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. But for now, good luck and may the best win. The 20 all exit the auditorium, guided by the combat people into a room labeled Contestant Holding Cell. Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben all sit together, looking around at the other 16 contestants, which includes Fat Amy, played by Rebel Wilson from Pitch Perfect, Lola, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor from Kinky Boots, P.T. Barnum, played by Hugh Jackman from The Greatest Showman, and Ian McKellen playing himself. The first person called to the stage is Ben Grimm. It is at this point that we cut to the Latvian Late Show with Victor Von Doom, the most popular television program in the country, which features Victor Von Doom as a talk show host, interviewing celebrities, sports stars, as well as doing many humorous bits and making insightful commentary on the world around him. Tonight, however, is a very special show for the Latvian Late Show because it's live. That's right. Victor Von Doom will be showing the acts on television to the audience, bringing the performers on immediately afterwards to discuss, and eventually he will have his audience vote on the winners. Because what's better than one framing device? Two framing devices. But back to Ben. It turns out that he was a former drummer in a rock band, but that he is also a very talented rapper. Ben gives a performance of his song, Lost on Me, then goes on the Latvian Late Show. Here's the chorus for Lost on Me. I don't know why it's been so long, but I've got no sight, can't see. Still I'm pushing on, gotta stay strong, though the rock's been lost on me. Ooh, the rock's been lost on me. Afterwards, he goes back to the contestant holding cell. A majority of the next acts are montaged or shown as snippets because Tom Hooper is incredibly uncomfortable with the style of the musical. What he is comfortable with is a lot of people sitting in a room talking with lots of dead space in the shot because that's his style, I guess. But as a majority of the other 20 go up for their auditions, more is revealed about the dynamics of the Fantastic Four, and they're pretty much what's expected. Sue is very shy. She's nervous about performing. Johnny, meanwhile, is already convinced that he's going to be the winner. What if there's more than one winner? Reed asks him. When I'm done, there won't be, Johnny replies. Reed is trying to maintain the balance between his friends while also keeping it quiet from Johnny that he and Sue are together. Johnny, of course, finds out at a certain point and he punches Reed in the face right before Reed is about to go in and perform. Nose broken, Reed steps out on stage and performs his number. What he had initially planned to be an extravagant number is now a much more somber piece, just him and the piano. Stretched myself so far. I've stretched myself so thin. Lost control of the car. Do I even want to win? Family's what's important. Family's who you choose. We have to stay together no matter if we lose. Fantastic. I know we can be fantastic, and with our strength together, we won't be stopped from being fantastic. We're gonna be fantastic, and there's nothing you can say or do. So get a clue, we're here to stay. There won't be anything in our way. From birth to death, from A to Z, it's only us, babe. Together we can be fantastic. Good God, we're fantastic, and we'll stay that way as long as we're here, for there's never been anything quite as clear. Fantastic. He goes on the Latvian Late Show after this and tells Von Doom that he's taking all the talent that these people have and putting it up for show like they're animals. He looks directly down the barrel of the camera and exclaims that they're not cats in a cage. He's dragged off by combat people as he screams, "We're not cats! We're not cats! We're not cats!" Von Doom hastily introduces the next act, which is Johnny Storm. He was not as moved by Reed's impassioned plea and performs Hot Stuff by Donna Summer. Full choreography, backup dancers, the works. I'm looking for some hot stuff, baby, this evening. I need some hot stuff, baby, tonight. I want some hot stuff, baby, this evening. Gotta have some hot stuff. Gotta have that lovin' tonight. He goes on the Latverian Late Show, but starts to become more wary of Von Doom, seeing just how much Von Doom is making fun of Reed. After Johnny says something, Von Doom says, "That didn't seem to be how you felt in our green room," and shows the Latverian Late Show audience the footage of Johnny hitting Reed. Johnny is appalled to see that they were being filmed in there this whole time. He goes back to the contestant holding cell where he sees Reed sitting there, now with several other bruises. He apologizes and the two make up. At this point, there is only one act left: Sue. She looks to Reed, Johnny, and Ben and says she can't. She's too nervous. Reed takes her hand and says, "It's okay, Sue. We're all here together." She smiles, hears her name called, and goes out. Unbeknownst to her or to the guards, Reed has also slipped past into the auditorium. Sue looks out into the nearly empty theater, but spots Reed. She picks up a guitar and sings the Taylor Swift song, Invisible String. Time, curious time, gave me no compasses, gave me no signs. Were there clues I didn't see? And isn't it just so pretty to think all along there was some invisible string tying you to me? She goes on the Latverian Late Show where it seems as though her performance has caught the attention of the whole country. People are blowing up about it, losing their minds, saying that if she doesn't win, it's rigged. Victor starts to ask her about it, and she says that if she is chosen, she won't accept the win without Reed, Johnny, and Ben by her side. The results come in and the four of them win, where Victor Von Doom invites them back out onto the Latverian Late Show and reveals that they will be made to be super performers with special abilities. But how will they get those special abilities, you may ask, he says. And that's when it's revealed. The other 16 in the holding cell have all the talent sucked out of them, turned into matter, and put inside the four winners. The 16 that are still in the holding cell are such dry of their ability, and the four turn into, "Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Fantastic Four." The audience applauds, but the four are disgusted. "This is entertainment to you people," Johnny says, catching on fire. "Looks like he found the hot stuff he was looking for, folks," Von Doom jokes. This results in the four adjusting to their new powers, and in a stroke of genius by Reed, he gets Sue to turn invisible and get the cameras off. With the live feed of the Latverian Late Show cut, the four turn to Von Doom, angry. Ben Grimm says, "You know, my band was called the Clobberers. Well, it's clobbering time." They don't kill Von Doom, but they put him away in his own contestant holding cell, keeping the live feed of that on for everyone to see. But unfortunately, there's no saving the 16 people that had their talent sucked away. "So now what?" Reed asks. And so begins a reprise of the Reed Richards song from earlier. "Fantastic. We're gonna be fantastic. And with our strength together, we won't be stopped from being fantastic." This time sung by Johnny, eventually joined by Sue and Ben. Reed also steps in to sing, and as the sun starts to rise over Latveria, they emerge from the VDP building as the Fantastic Four. The end.
I don't know how you managed to outdo yourself, Jack Mayer. And I am privileged, I am honored to have been here for this. Listeners, I hope you feel the same. We are listening to Genius in real time and couldn't be filled with a bigger sense of joy in my life. And now I have to follow this. So thank you for that. I'm curious before, because I'm stalling, because I'm trying to avoid, I'm hoping listeners in the audience forget this, because I'm going to go, you took them to the stratosphere, and I have to bring them back down to earth now. How long did it take you to come up with your pitch, the songs? What was your process?
As soon as they had James Corden in there, I knew that there was going to be the framing device of the talk show. The songs, initially, I was going to have it be all covers, and that's why Hot Stuff and Invisible String are covers.
Right.
The first song I wrote a little bit when I was at work. The other two I basically wrote today. The Reed Richards song, the magnum opus, all written like 3 or 4 hours ago.
Again, you are listening to a Fancast for podcast prodigy, listeners. And while I'm not going to take all the credit, I will take some of the credit. No, really, I mean, all jokes aside, that was fantastic. That was great. I could keep heaping praises on that, but I was such a joy to listen to, so thank you for that. But not thank you again for me having to now go after that.
I'm very excited to hear this.
But I will do my best to at least get close. You shot for the stars and made it. I'm hoping to at least get into the upper atmosphere here. My Tom Hooper Fantastic Four film, it's not an origin film, and it's sort of set in the MCU. You will hear why it's sort of. But this movie is actually, it is a sequel in some regards. It is called The Fantastic Four, The Fantastic Four, and here we go. This movie is set initially in the 1960s, where the Fantastic Four have established themselves as the superhero team of the time. And though in the MCU we are learning about the multiverse a little bit more now, we discover that the Fantastic Four, that Reed Richards, played by Anne Hathaway, finds a scientific means of being able to venture through the multiverse, or so she thinks. The four of them are in their lab, and Reed hits the big red button to activate his portal into the multiverse when he hears, I don't think so. By the way, Victor or Victoria Von Doom is there. You think you're in control, but this is my show. This voice sounds an awful lot like Idris Elba, by the by, and we see the five of them get blinked into this portal. It was not scientific means that brought them into the multiverse. It was the power of McCavity himself who brought the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom into the multiverse. And the MCU that we know, as they're venturing through this portal, getting flashes here and there, different worlds are passing by. And what we thought was the MCU is the MCU, but not the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is the Marvel Cats universe. And we see them, the Fantastic Four, enter into this world that looks an awful lot like revolutionary France. But as they're getting their bearings, they're realizing things are a lot bigger here. They're not their normal size. And after a beat, they all look down and see their bodies covered in fur. They have become cats. All of them, except Ben Grimm. When Ben Grimm looks down at his hands, he no longer sees rocks, but he just sees human hands. Going through the multiverse had reversed his powers, and he is now a normal human being. So that's really prologue 1. Prologue 2 is some voiceover, some learning about what these characters go through in what is essentially 8 lifetimes. They go through 8 lifetimes trying to make it through and end up meeting their demise in 8 different ways. But as we know, cats have 9 lives, and this is their last life to try and make it back home. So, one thing we also learn, the revolution isn't actually between the poor people of France and the ruling class. It is actually between the humans and mutants. This is where we are introduced to the X-Men. And we don't meet all of them. We only meet a couple of them. We do meet Hugh Jackman playing Cat Wolverine. We also meet Kitty Pryde, played by an older version of Kitty Pryde, played by Helena Bonham Carter. And that is our tease into the X-Men in this universe. So we're kind of back and forth. We see interactions with the Fantastic Four characters and these mutants and their strife in this revolutionary France-esque era where mutants are struggling for their freedoms. Conversely, they still need to find a way to make it back home, to get that last life that they've been vying for over and over. And that is where we meet Judi Dench reprising her role as Old Deuteronomy, where she has the power to typically only grant one, but because the Fantastic Four are a package deal, she will, if they win the Jellicle prize, they will be able to travel back home. So throughout this, each of them, similarly to Jack, will have an opportunity to sing a song, present their case. We also meet some different cat characters. Some are recasts from previous movies. We have Samantha Barks from Les Mis playing the role of Tigra, a Marvel superhero. We have Francesca Howard, who was first introduced in 2019's Cats, playing White Tiger. We have Taylor Swift playing Black Cat in this version of the Fantastic Four. And we have Michael Sheen, who appeared in Tom Hooper's The Damned United, playing Sabretooth. So as you hear, they're all cat-based characters, sans Wolverine, who we're making a cat. Now, each of them are singing their songs, presenting their cases. For example, here are the lists of some of the songs. I do not have a piano. I do not have full lyrics for all of these songs, but I will give you a snippet of some of the songs that we will be getting throughout the Fantastic Four. From the whole company, from everyone, we will get a song called One Life More, which is a parody of One Day More from Les Mis. So, One Life More. Another day we land upon our feet is kind of the gist. Now, Amanda Seyfried as Sue Storm. Listeners, I am, because this is my movie, I am throwing a curveball here. Despite him not directing this film, I decided to throw a little bit of Mamma Mia in these as well. Who doesn't like ABBA? And they all can choose what songs they sing. They don't need to sing all parodies from these movies that he's directed. So Amanda Seyfried decides to do an ABBA parody of Mamma Mia called Mamma Meow, which would go a little something like, Mamma Meow, here we go again. Catnip, how can I resist you? Anne Hathaway as Reed Richards, which, Mr. Fantastic, Mr. Mistopheles, there's some parallels there. So she would be doing a song in that same vein that would go something like, oh, well, I never was there ever. A cat so clever as the elastic, Mr. Fantastic. See, I feel you all getting on board with me right now. So let's go. Let's keep that train chugging. Like I said, there's kind of a second story going on with hinting at the freedom, the struggle of cat mutants versus cat humans. Not a sentence I'd ever thought I'd say in my life. And there's still that strife, that struggle between Reed Richards and Dr. Doom. So I also envision a parody of The Confrontation from Les Mis, but paralleling between Hugh Jackman and Michael Sheen as Wolverine and Sabretooth. And then also Reed Richards and Dr. Doom kind of back and forth. So this kind of four-way interjection of The Confrontation. I do not have lyrics for this one yet, so I apologize for that, but I will work on it.
The Catfrontation.
Or the Catfrontation. Yeah, it's right. It was right in front of my face. Sometimes you can't see the things that are so close to your face. Thank you, Jack. Next, I envision after The Confrontation or the Catfrontation, Hugh Jackman would also get his own number because it's Hugh Jackman. He's paid a lot of money. You want to hear him sing as much as you can. So I envision him actually getting the Anne Hathaway number from Les Mis in his version of I Dreamed a Dream, but instead it's I was Wolverine in time gone by. My bones are made of adamantium. We can't forget about Eddie Redmayne. He's there. He gets a number just because, he's one of the main characters. But this is really all he does. And I'm going to give him the great Samantha Barks number from Les Mis. It's a version of On My Own, but it is called Flame on My Own. Flame on my own. Myself, I'm self-combusting. A little tease there of that one. It sells itself, people. It sells itself. The penultimate song that I would do is Alicia Vikander, who I've learned is actually a very nice singer. I haven't seen her perform in any feature roles as a singer, but from what I've read, she has a very nice voice. I envision her stepping back into the Mamma Mia stuff, the ABBA stuff, instead of Voulez-Vous. Voulez-Doom would be what I envision her number being in this movie. And last, but certainly not least, as we touched on in our discussion of 2019's Cats, Jennifer Hudson was an outlier. Her performance of Memory is an all-timer. While it's normally a solo, I envision her singing Memory again, but with Ben Grimm as a duet. Whereas she's remembering how she was young and beautiful and how things were. He is really remembering about when he had his powers, his rock skin, and how things aren't always greener and how he misses what he thought he hated. So it's this dichotomy between the two of them and the memories they had of how things used to be. In the end, Judi Dench, Old Deuteronomy, was moved by all the Fantastic Four's performances, and they get sent back to their world. However, time works funky in the Marvel Cat universe, and they don't get sent back to the 1960s. They get sent back to present day. And that is how the iteration of the Fantastic Four are introduced into what we thought was the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's actually a Marvel meta-universe of the Cats universe. And Doctor Doom is left there. Well, the post-credit scene is McCavity approaching Doctor Doom and them hatching the starts of a plan to get revenge upon the Cats, the Fantastic Four, and the multiverse itself. And of course, this was all done with weirdly framed close-ups during all the singing numbers, dance choreography that goes unappreciated because of the editing that makes it all look like a flailing mess, and despite what we were promised, no buttholes. That is the Fantastic Four, the Fantastic Four.
I'm there day one. I don't know how anybody would not go see that movie.
Right?
That's a $3 billion movie right there.
Oh, easily.
Combining the two things that audiences have always wanted to see together, the MCU and Cats. How do you not go out there and see it every single day of your life?
I'd see it every day if I could.
Again, I have Kevin on speed dial now. I can get this made.
Oh, man, Jack, I hope you listeners really do appreciate the amount of energy, and it wasn't work, because I thoroughly enjoyed putting this together, and I hope, Jack...
As did I.
I hope there's at least an appreciation of how much fun we had doing this, but really, you all should want to see these movies, whether it's to actually enjoy or just hate watch. I'm not judging, but we do need to end this podcast episode at some point, so we might as well do it now. I think we could probably go on another hour if we wanted to, but there it is, our fan castings and pitches for a Tom Hooper-helmed Fantastic Four movie. We hope you, the listeners, enjoyed our exploration into this what-if scenario. I want to make a special note that the Fancast at 4 podcast is hosted for free on Anchor. We encourage you, if you have your own podcast idea, to check out Anchor. It is a great resource for getting your idea off the ground. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. If you do happen to be listening on YouTube, we would greatly appreciate you hitting that subscribe button and commenting on who your Tom Hooper Fancast would be, on what your thoughts of our lists and pitches were, and on which director you might want to see next. I also want to thank Matt Hart and Maddie Gunner for the fantastic theme music they created for us. And I certainly want to thank you, Jack, for being a guest today. I hope you had fun.
The most fun.
A little inside baseball, listeners. I actually asked Jack 3 days ago to be this week's guest because I really wanted to do a Tom Hooper episode. So, as it was mentioned previously, these pitches, these songs, 3 days time for both of us. So we hope that at the very least that came through today. Jack, where can you be found? What are you up to now? What's going on with you?
I don't really have much social media, but you can find my letterbox where I'm reviewing movies that are based on the novel Push by Sapphire.
Exclusively.
Perfect.
Well, that is our show. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Dan Bettenhausen, and on behalf of my guest, Jack Mayer, I hope you all have a fantastic day.
McCavity.